Hello and welcome back to the Palace Way podcast. It's been a while since the last one, but we thought it was best to end 2025 and start 2026 with a bang. Crystal Palace clearly had the exact same thing in mind. As about 20 minutes before we started recording, news broke about Brennan Johnson having an impending medical with us in the next couple of days, with the idea to get him in the squad to play Newcastle next weekend. Or this weekend rather. So it's an exciting time, and I'm joined by two very exciting people in Pat Rosanio and Max Morris. One, I think both of them have been on this podcast before, but yeah, how are you guys doing, Pat?
Doing well. Still sunny in Tampa, but unseasonably cold. It's about 8 degrees for you centigrade folks. So Tampa people are freezing, iguanas are falling out of trees, but we're here to celebrate and wrap up what is indisputably the greatest calendar year in Crystal Palace history, 2025. So happy to be here and talk Palace.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just, there's so much to get into. We'll talk transfers, we'll talk FA Cup, we'll talk Europe, we'll talk Glasner, we'll do end of season awards. Max has set up a very good plan for everything to cover today. And speaking of which, Max, how are you?
Yeah, honestly, no, I'm great. Thanks, Bruno. I'm a little bit disappointed with how December went, but no, as Pat said, this was the best calendar year for Crystal Palace in ever. So yeah, lots and lots to talk about, good and bad. So yeah, no, I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, let's just get straight into it with Brennan Johnson. Quoted £35 million fee, not really played much for Spurs this season, but obviously was their top goal scorer last season, won the Europa League for them. Could have won the Europa League for us if circumstances had been different. But yeah, Pat, I'd love to just get your thoughts on the player, what he brings to us. Does he solve our problems? And is he worth the money?
The money is the money. I mean, going from a Premier League squad to another Premier League squad is always going to be probably an inflated value for price, especially in January. But in the long run, when we have amortization running wild and things like that, you can stretch it out. It's not too much of an overpayment. What we do have is a direct pacey player that scores goals. We have a player that has outperformed his XG consistently for the last 2.5 years. And that is something that Crystal Palace is desperate for, someone that can play shots and finish chances. We are 17th in non-penalty, in expected goals on target. So it's post-shot expected goals minus expected goals. So this takes away goalkeeping ability. It takes that away completely. It's just, where are you placing the ball? Is your shot placement improving your chance of scoring? We are 17th in that in the entire league. Brennan Johnson is in the 90th percentile in that same metric for the past 2.5 seasons. That is something that we are desperate for, and we are going to welcome if this deal goes through, which it looks like it will.
I think that's a really exciting summary of the player. I guess the next question is, where does that leave Ismaila Sarr? Max, would you prefer to see Brennan or Sarr playing once Sarr's back from AFCON?
I mean, for me, you can't drop Sarr. I think Sarr has come in and he's reignited his career again at Palace after falling out of favour. It was at Marseille, wasn't he? And he's coming in. I think he's just got better and better. Maybe had a little bit of a drop off when he came back from his injury. I don't really think he hit the ground running, but there is a chance that maybe AFCON was in the back of his mind. And at the end of the day, I do think Senegal have got a pretty decent chance of winning AFCON. So yeah, I think that might have been in the back of his mind. But for me, you can't drop Sarr. I used the term backup to Sarr on our chat the other day, which was, to be fair, yeah, rightly called out by you, because maybe he's not going to be a backup, but giving us that option, for me, I would still like Sarr as number one. But having that option as a very similar profiling player on that right-hand side to suit the system, I'm a massive, massive fan of the signing. The only thing that I do question is the price tag. But yeah, as Pat said, he's Premier League proven, Spurs top goal scorer. And as Bruno, as you said before, they paid 55 million for him. So, I think it's a better deal for us than it is for them. And I think he got quite unlucky with them bringing in Kudus. He didn't really seem to get a look in after. But I think Palace is a great opportunity for him to kind of reignite that goal scoring form again.
I mean, what interests me is you say they're similar players, Sarr and Johnson, both quick, right-footed right wingers with a tendency to score goals. But I'm curious how Johnson is different to Sarr. Why are we spending 35 million on him when we've got Sarr already? You say I wouldn't believe we'd spend that money for him to be a backup, if we want to use those words again. Obviously, we've done that in the past with Nketiah, but with Johnson, Spurs fans I've spoken to seem to feel he is kind of wasted on the wing. He's not a skillful winger who dances past players. He's very direct. A lot of them believe he'd be best played as a second striker almost, with someone more physical. That sounds like it lends itself to our system quite well, just by that description alone. Similarly, he does, as Pat was saying, score goals from chances. He places his shots well. And I think Sarr has missed chances. I think Johnson's probably better than Sarr at that statistically. So he brings that, and he may also provide more ability on the ball than Sarr, because I don't think Sarr has ever beaten a man in a 1v1 in front of my eyes.
He just seems to be like, we'll knock the ball and run after it, because he always seems to have most defenders for pace. But I do agree, he's not. You never see him with any silky dribbling, or I've never seen Sarr even attempt anything that Elise could do. But again, they're just different players, aren't they?
Yeah, I think Sarr needs a pass and a touch to create momentum for him. And he relies on that. I don't think he can create his own momentum when he's 1v1 with defenders from slow down and look for a pass. And in fact, I think the only time I've ever seen him sidestep a player was the assist for Eze's goal in the semi-final, when he swept past the defender and set up Eze. But yeah, I think Johnson, although he's not the most proficient winger of the style of traditional Crystal Palace players, I think he still brings something different to Sarr. I don't know, Pat, if you have anything to add on to that.
Yeah, he's not a flashy player by any means, and I think he does have a lot of similarities to Sarr in that regard. But like we said, the shot placement is really something that's incredibly important. I think they're both physical players. I think they can both win a lot of duels, which is obviously something that's really important in Glasner's system, and something that Oliver Glasner values quite high. And it gives you, look, if we're going to be considered favorites or even contenders for multiple tournaments, if we're going to be in 3-4 competitions, get deep into domestic cups, try to get to Europe again and play in Europe, we need 15, 16, 17, 18 players that are probably first team quality that could actually be considered starters, quote unquote. So this whole, is he a backup? Is he not a backup? I think it's bad verbiage, just because we need more than 11 guys. There's going to be rotation problems with fatigue, injury, AFCON's in the middle of the season. I don't know if that's going to be changing anytime soon. They say it is, but they never know if it's going to happen. If we have, so guys like Sarr that are going to play in that, just general form, guys being out of form. If a player's not hitting shots and not playing well, we have to keep playing them right now because we don't have the depth. So having just a body that is a competent, proven player in this league, it's just going to be very, very important for us.
And I think, is that not what was so obvious coming off the back of December, and how, in my opinion, we seem to get, maybe apart from the second half at Arsenal, I'd say is maybe an anomaly. But I think, as someone who was at Ellen Road for that Leeds game, I think we seem to get progressively worse along the month, which we all know why that is. The players were absolutely shattered by the end of it. I think the first half that Spurs showed that they had a little bit of a rest that they hadn't had for the rest of the month, but we couldn't finish our chances. So hopefully Johnson can come in and aid that. But December was just, it was so poor, wasn't it? So that Johnson is hopefully one of many more to come in to fill in this very obvious hole that we have in our squad. And you said, Pat, about, we should be pushing for 17, 18 players that are first team quality. Well, as Glasner is notoriously one to never really seem to rotate, he completely avoids it at all costs. And even when he did rotate, he only seemed to bring on the same kind of 3 players off the bench. He was also, I saw a stat the other day, I saw it was manager's average first substitution time. He doesn't make a change until the 75th minute on average. And sometimes, like Ellen Road was a good example. I know Uche had played on the Thursday, but Mateta was so off it at Leeds. All of everyone around me was screaming for Uche. And then when he comes on, he wins a penalty. And you're thinking, well, what more can he do? But just on December, I don't know what you two thought of it, but it was, I think it was pretty rough.
Yeah, I can hit you with some numbers here. So there's a difference between mental fatigue and physical fatigue, and physical fatigue is quantifiable to some degree. Mental fatigue is really not. So subjectively, I think there's been a lot of mental fatigue, and you can see that just in defending set pieces, right? We're terrible at defending set pieces right now. Physically, there's really no proof that we are physically fatigued outside of maybe just Mateta playing badly, but that could be a mental thing too, right? So I crunched some numbers and looked at some things from Leeds and back forward. In the second half, our XG is higher, our XG allowed is lower. So our XG difference is better in the second half in December than it is in the first half by some considerable margin too. We're talking negative 0.55, so a little bit below our XG difference in the first half, and we're above our XG difference is a positive 1.3 in the second. So we're actually creating more chances and conceding less in the second half. Our defensive lines have been higher. Our tackle rates have been higher. Our duels contested have been higher all in the second half. So there isn't really physical fatigue. And Glasner's not playing guys a lot. I think it's just a trust thing. Yes, Uche needs to play more. He's shown that he deserves it. But this whole our players are gassed, they're shattered. There's really no parameters that are showing that. If you know about Glasner's history with players and injury, you know that he is very, very, very cognizant of making sure that players are not getting injured out there. I would say that out of all of our injuries, Daichi's is probably the only one that you could consider an overuse injury because it's just a hamstring going like that. The other ones have been what we would call acute injuries, which are due to more mechanical issues or blunt trauma or something like that.
You don't think that was the case with Munoz? With Munoz seemed to be playing.
Munoz is a knee.
Came in.
It's a knee issue. I mean, if it's a knee and if it's a quick cleanup like a meniscus or something, that's inflammation from probably having some kind of overstretch and damage. Obviously playing a lot isn't gonna help that, but I would not call that an overuse injury. No, personally, just from what I used to work and what I used to see. The issue is for us, we're not playing well. We're not capitalizing in moments. It's these. Maybe we're playing well for 85 minutes and we have these little lapses where we just kind of give away some certain things. If you look at our goals forced and goals allowed in December, 4 goals forced, 9 allowed. The XG on those 4 goals, or the XG we generated to get 4 goals, 7.2. The XG that we allowed to get 9 goals, 6.5. So we're actually doing better and having a positive XG in this month that we struggled in. And I don't think it's our play. I don't think it's the way we're set up. I don't think it's anything like that. I think we're mentally switching off in opportune moments, whether it's defending a set piece or whether it's getting a good chance at goal and not being able to focus and place the ball well. So mental fatigue, absolutely, but I will hit back on physical fatigue. I think Glasner's done an excellent job in managing that.
Yeah, and Glasner said himself, and so have players like Will Hughes, that physical fatigue isn't playing a factor in the recent run of results. And like you say, Pat, I don't believe that it's a system failure. People talking about is Glasner's system getting exposed and that's why we're struggling. No, it's a consistent onslaught of games. We're missing chances. That's bound to have an effect on the players. Maybe it's a mental issue partially, like you're saying. In other cases, it's a quality issue. We just haven't had the shots on target. Mateta's not been putting them on target. Sar's not been around. Uche, for how good he's been since playing, has still missed some pretty high value chances. Pino hasn't been able to find that final ball. Sometimes he's made the right pass, someone's missed it. Sometimes he's just timed it wrong or weighted it wrong. We're waiting for that game where it all comes together. You'll remember the 1-0 win away to Liverpool that started our great run when just after Glasner came in. We need a game like that to kind of bring us all together. Unfortunately, we're playing Villa without Sar, and we're playing, Fulham at a time that we're missing a ton of players due to injury. And yet again, missing those players is part of the quality issue as to why we're wasting chances. We were missing them earlier in the season, but it's gotten worse. And then obviously just with switching off at set pieces, that's part of the mental fatigue. It's, once something becomes a thing in your head, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to deal with it better. And if you've got that across an entire team, when the games are coming quick and fast and you can't actually practice these set pieces because you've got fuck all for time on the training pitch, there's not really much you can do to tackle that problem.
It was something that the commentary mentioned the other day. I think it might have been Martin Tyler was saying, Palace don't train, Palace just play. Because, when you look at our calendar, you look at our fixtures, you think, in between these fixtures, when have they had time to address these issues that have been obvious? And when we talk about missing chances, I don't know how much you two have seen on it, but I've seen a lack of or a lot of content and people speaking about a lack of goals from our midfielders, about we're missing those players like a Gallagher, like a MacArthur, who can chip in with a goal every now and then. Wharton somehow never scored for Palace. Kamada scored 2 goals. When the fuck does Hughes ever score? And it's just sometimes when we're missing these like you say, high value chances. Mateta for me has got blood on his hands for a ridiculous amount of opportunities. But I don't think we'd be having this conversation if we had a midfielder who could absolutely slap it from 25 yards and then it goes top bins. I don't think we couldn't be sat here with only 3 wins in December if we had a player who can come and do that.
There's an article on The Athletic that I've been pointing people to go read. I think Matt Woosnam and Liam Tharn did it. And it talks about how Palace's lack of midfield goals is not because there's a problem there. It's because the system is working as it should be working. So Glasner's system is predicated on 5 and 5. So 5 people in the rest defense to cover and 5 people to attack. It's the front 3 and the 2 wing backs. Those are the ones that have been attacking. The 2 midfielders in that pivot, and they've been tasked to shield, to play deeper, to kind of play those balls over the top that you see Wharton do all the time, to win back possession and to redistribute. Their job isn't to score goals. Now, granted, of course, if you got somebody that could take a long shot, Wharton's tried a few and they can go in, that would be great. But I don't think that we're going to be going and grabbing some goal scoring number 8 that's going to be driving forward, because that's going to leave us too exposed. We're only going to have 4 players to defend against counters. And that's something that we've been good against, is protecting against counters, because we do have that back 5 that's always there to shield. So I wouldn't say that we need more goals from midfield. I think we need more goals and goal contributions from our front 5, including our wing backs.
I do
Pino,
agree.
like you said. Yeah, Pino, like you said, he needs to score more. He needs to get more confidence to take his own chances and actually want to shoot. His distribution's been fantastic, and that's really what his primary thing is. Guys just aren't finishing his chances that he's providing for him. Yeah. But I will say that we do need him to score a little bit more. He does need to get a little more confidence. But, he's only been in this league for 4 months now. I think he'll get that confidence up. But I would say he needs to score more.
Yeah, and just very quickly, on your point about needing the midfielders to step up or to sign a midfielder, we may be underperforming the rest of the league in terms of goal-scoring midfielders, but we're also top of the league for goal-scoring defenders. So those goals are still coming from outside the attack. It's just that the attack are kind of letting us down, like you say, with Pino not scoring goals, Mateta missing chances, Sarr not in the side, maybe not fully coming back into it after his injury. So we're missing these expected sources of goals from our attack rather than from the defense. And, Wharton does create chances, Kamada does create chances, and they've been getting closer and closer to scoring their first goal for us for a while in the league anyway, in Kamada's case. I think it'll come. I think we would probably benefit from having a midfielder that, that Glasner can trust to come on and provide a goal threat. Funnily enough, I think Devaney's done that recently. Although it might just be recency bias. But I think, if we want to look at the kind of player, like you mentioned, Conor Gallagher is someone we explored at signing in the last window. I think he's still a target for this one, potentially on a loan to buy kind of deal. Kobbie Mainoo is another one I've heard in passing.
I would love, by the way, just when you mention it, I would love to see Kobe Mainoo at Palace. I think him and Wharton is so dangerous.
Yeah.
It maybe a little bit
lightweight.
Yeah, lightweight, and when you meet those big bodies in midfield, like, you know, if we've got a Lerma next to Wharton, he provides that physicality. Mainoo and Wharton is lightweight, but if you think about the distribution and the working through the transitions, seeing Mainoo kind of take that ball forward, I think it would be brilliant. But if he did come, I think it would give the opportunity for Wharton to rest, and I think Mainoo would play the Wharton role alongside someone maybe a little bit more physical.
I also think having more midfielders of a different profile gives you versatility and the ability to do a shape change. Like, I know the 5-2-2-1 system's been really effective for us on the Glasner, and that system is one that our players know. But also, I feel like if we had more profiles of player at the moment, we maybe would have explored playing a 4-back this month. You know, we've kind of struggled to name an 11 with players in their natural positions these last couple of weeks due to the injuries to Munoz and Richards. You know, you've got Lerma dropping in at centre-back, and that leaves no, like, proper midfielders on the bench if you've got Hughes and Wharton starting in midfield, with Kamada injured, Devaney starting. And then, obviously, we're out of Munoz, and Klein's more of a back 4 player, and he's past it as a back 4 player, let alone as a right wing back. So, you know, if we want to try and minimise those gaps in positional recognition, maybe a shape change would help it. But, you know, if we do that, who do you add in a 3-man midfield? Who do you know, having these players would give Glasner more options. And we all spoke about it in the summer. We did countless podcasts and tweets and, you know, articles and threads about how Palace were leaving their manager short and how they needed to back him with the 3-2-1 month. And then, you know, we just ran out of time, and that's the club's own doing. Well, it's good to see that we're acting quickly in January to make up for that mistake. But, you know, December is kind of the month that punishes you for your administrative errors as a football club, and we've been punished.
Yeah, I think you can change the shape. It just depends on how you defend, right? Like, Glasner's been very adamant that the shape doesn't really matter how we attack. As long as you have that attacking 5, you get the ball out wide to either a wing back or a wide winger. You have 3 players flood the box near post, and then you have that backside, whether it's, you know, Mitchell in our case with the backside wing back, or it could be, you know, the backside winger going far post. That's how he sets up. Whether that player that's on the wide side is a wing back, a full back, a winger, it doesn't really make a difference. What makes a difference is how you defend out of it. It could be a 4-2-3-1. It could be a 4-4-2. I think maybe at the end of Spurs, maybe not, like, you know, we want to be nitpicky, but I saw a 4-4-2. I saw Lerma slide over to right back, and I saw us play 2 strikers up top. So when we brought SA in to play as like a right mid. So he's changed it a little bit. The attacking shape is always going to be the same. But yeah, I think that maybe we can entertain the idea of our defensive shape maybe catering to what we have a little better. I think that's fair.
I'm curious as to how Gallagher would change our midfield dynamic. I know that Carl mentioned earlier on the Winging It podcast that he was someone we were looking at. It was a rumor that kind of emerged out of nowhere in the summer, but it had a lot of weight behind it. Gallagher was interested in coming here. He's not really nailed down a starting spot in at Atleti this season, and, you know, he's got strong ties to southwest-ish London, and he's got strong ties to our football club.
It didn't really sound like the move was being blocked by him at all in the summer. From what I was reading, it sounded like Atletico went, well, you can either splash out 40-50 mil or whatever it was they wanted for him, or there was no deal. But you understand that it might be different now in January.
Indeed. Now, obviously, there are, like, additional complications with this. We were looking at selling Nketiah to West Ham. We still are. His injury makes that complicated because that's maybe £20 million you get to sign a young striker to replace him, and then, you know, bit of money left over from that to put towards signing a Gallagher type player. We've got Uche on a loan to buy at the moment. Do we want to add Gallagher to that list of sort of money we will have to pay at some point? Like, we're not a rich club in terms of cash flow. We may have very wealthy owners, but as we've spoken about in length, the ability for Palace to invest in the transfer market is quite limited by both their plans with infrastructure and the ownership structure. In that, if we got considerable investment from the billionaires, and Paris would be diluted and lose his overall hold in the club. That is still workable to some degree, but it does restrict us. However, we have made a profit in the summer window. We do now have more headway with UEFA's international competition restrictions for spending money on transfers. So we've got the headroom to invest. The question is whether or not how far we're willing to go on top of Brennan Johnson, 35 million on him. Can we sell another player? Who would we really sell if not Nketiah? It's a situation.
And with kind of all the new rules on what you can and can't spend, if we do splash, so I'm reading 33.5. I don't know if that does or doesn't include add-ons, right? But let's call it best part of 35. How much more, A, would we actually be able to spend? And B, how much are we willing to spend?
I think we went into this window expecting, I say went into this window, it's not started yet, but by the time you're watching this, we're going into the window expecting to sign Brennan Johnson and are targeting at least 2 other positions. Those positions are right wing back and one of centre mid or striker. And if Nketiah went centre mid and striker.
By the way, just on that, I would also love it if we got rid of Bruno and got someone else in to back up Mitchell.
Not going to happen.
No, I know it's completely
4 months. In 4 months. Give him a break. Come on.
No, I know. I'm
like 400 minutes.
I think Bruno is overly hated because he runs like a fanny and he's got long hair. Like, he just looks like he's not asked.
Mate,
he runs like a sort of, early morning speed walker.
He's played 221 minutes. And so in less than 3 games, Max is ready to sell him out to you.
Yeah. Do you know what? And do you know what, Pat? When you say it like that, that makes you sound very, very reactionary. But honestly, I don't think I've ever been impressed with him. I just think when we do have to rotate, and we have played him or to give Ty that well earned rest, and he has been massively overworked over the past couple of years. I just think, for how well Mitchell's doing, so well, by the way, like, really need to give him his kudos. He's doing so well this season, but we can't play him as much as obviously we'd like to. I'd love him to play every minute of every game. But for me, the downgrade, and you could say the same on the right-hand side, the downgrade from Mitchell to Sosa is, I know, like you say, Pat, the sample size is different. I get it. But I've never been impressed with not even one of those 200 and some minutes.
I do think there's a lot that Dean Benamar, who is 17 and hadn't played 90 minutes in 4 months, came in and gave a better performance in 55 minutes than Bruno has in 270 or whatever you said it was, Pat. And like, obviously, wider sample size, I think Benamar isn't as good as Sosa yet. But there is truth in the fact that Sosa hasn't been fantastic. He's been given chances and he's made dumb fouls and been sent off, and that's on him. But there is an adjustment period, and I do think in that game where he started at home against Fredrikstad, he was our most dangerous player, creating the most amount of chances in that game.
Yeah, and I know you said, Max, you could say the same thing for the right side. You can't, because there is no backup on the right side. There isn't one. There legitimately is not one. We have Klein, who I love. I love Nathaniel Klein. I'm not going to sit here and say bad things about him that aren't true, and I'm not going to go on about it because I think he's done so much for this club. He's past it. When you're close to my age,
I agree. I do agree.
You're not going to play anymore. And if you looked at the game against Leeds, especially, over 50% of his passes were backwards. So only 17.
He went forward, panicked. He absolutely panicked. He didn't know what to do. It was like, right, we'll just play the safe option every time. And we can't blame him.
Yeah. And over about 17% of our attacks only initiated on the right side in that match. So there is a hole on that side, and Sarr being gone doesn't help. But there's a hole on that side that if there's one thing, I'm obviously usually the voice of optimism, and I wear that with pride. But if there's one thing that we need to hold the club accountable for, it's that there was no backup for Munoz. You see when Munoz goes down, how important he was, and to not have anybody there, it's a problem. And I will say too that, polarizing as he may be, a left-footed Justin Devaney has been our best right wing back with Munoz out, and I don't think there's really much argument with that.
I don't disagree. at all. And I actually ended up getting into a debate with someone on Instagram comments of all places this week. I'd made a comment saying how detrimental it is and how basically our right side is non-existent with no Munoz and no Sarr, right? Now, obviously, they are our two starting players on that side. It makes sense. But the drop-off to the point where you can pull out stats like that, Pat, where 17% of our attacks in one game come from the right-hand side, and Klein looked absolutely petrified every time he got to the halfway line. It was almost like he didn't know what to do. And someone absolutely ridiculed me back, saying that it was ludicrous that we are expected to score goals from our right wing back. And I'm not trying to. I don't know whether I was hooked by bait. It might have been a possibility, but I thought if you are a Palace fan and if you really watch Palace over the last year or so, you wouldn't be saying things like, "Oh, we shouldn't rely on our right wing back to score goals." I understand the point, and yeah, we should finish more chances. But how much does Munoz create?
I think he has the most goals out of any defender. I remember we're going to call wingbacks defenders. I think he has the most goals out of any defender in the Premier League since he's joined. So that's a ridiculous. I don't know who
just how we play. Like, there's no issue with it.
Yeah, I mean, and like we talked about before, with how it's set up with the midfielders really being in the back five, those wingbacks are attackers when we have the ball, and when we have possession, they're going to get forward and they're going to look to create, whether it's goals or assists. So it's not like, oh yeah, you're talking about a back four. You know, when Joel Ward played right back for us and he was expected to defend. It's definitely a different position and a different expectation. And yeah, if Klein isn't going to score, if Devaney isn't going to score, they at least need to progress the ball forward and get the ball up into our forward line. And we're just not seeing that. And it makes us a little bit too one-dimensional. And we've done well to mitigate that. You know, the numbers have shown that we haven't looked too lost, but numbers aren't everything. And you can definitely see that there's a lopsidedness to our game that's a little easy. And I will go one further for Fulham coming up and say that, especially with Anthony Robinson coming back, they already love going down the left side. That's without Jedi Robinson. He's back. He's in form. He's finally fit. We need to figure out something, especially if Richards isn't going to play, because they're going to attack that side the entire match.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree. And just while we were on the topic of like backups to Munoz and anything, Bruno, can you tell us anyone that we are looking at the minute to be that saviour for the backup position at right wing back?
Yeah, I think we have a pretty familiar strategy, as we seem to do for all of our transfer business this summer. This January, you got us looking at Gallagher, Brennan Johnson's an old school Dougie target, and now at right wing back we've got Sasha Bowie. We're looking at, although I don't think that one's likely to go ahead, just because I think he struggled for game time at Bayern. He wouldn't want to come here to struggle for game time on less money in a lesser competition when compared to the Champions League. But in his stead, there's a player called El Ouadi at Genk. He was Munoz's deputy for half a season and then replaced him. He scored 6 goals in that league this season already, and he looks very, very good. I know Pat's a fan, so I might let Pat tell you a bit more about him in a second. But we're looking at a couple of players there. In France, there are some. In Belgium, there are some. But we're very committed to signing a player in that position. I'd say El Ouadi is probably the most likely one.
Yeah, El Ouadi, just a very Maverick style in a good way. Reminds you of Munoz a little bit. A little more progressive than Munoz in terms of his passing ability, but also loves to carry the ball forward, direct in the sense that he is going to look to play the pass forward. He's not going to look to play sideways or backwards passes. Does really well to get in situations to score goals and takes his chances when he has them. He places the ball well. I think only 24 or 25 years old. So I think that would be a home run pick for me. And the fact that we're linked with it, I would love that. There's some other guys that I like just because of numbers and data and just watching them play, but he's the one that's actually had some smoke to it. So I'd be very happy with it.
Is he maybe more technical than, could you describe him as more technical than?
Yeah, I would. Where he's not as physical, obviously. I mean, who is? I don't think there's many players on earth right now that are more physical than Daniel Munoz, but he's definitely has a little bit more on-ball ability, and you can see that with his passing tree and his passing accuracy. Yeah,
I mean, I saw Munoz on Christmas Eve with a damaged knee. He was posting Instagram stories of him in his home gym, like going at it. Just that guy is an absolute machine. He just loves it, and it's so much fun just to have a player like that, and not very fun to have him out of your squad.
Is there any word on when we were expecting him back? Is it still kind of end of January or?
I honestly haven't asked about it. When I was not expecting him back until early February to be starting, to be honest, which means that we can't play with Klein until then. So
no way.
Whoever the right back we decide to go for, I think I'd expect the saga to maybe get a bit more drawn out, just because if it is El Ouadi, they'll want to sign a replacement first because of the makeup of that squad. But I'm sure we've given them the necessary preparation. You don't go into a January window with a target like that and haven't made the club or the player aware first. That just doesn't happen in modern football. So, I think we'll move as fast as we can, and hopefully we can get that over the line, and give Munoz some competition by the time he's back in early Feb.
If I may add one last thing on Munoz, just for some optimism. Obviously, I rehabbed a lot of players, in my past life, let's say. The length of return has a lot to do with how you approach your recovery and how you approach your rehab. We know that Daniel Munoz is going to absolutely approach it with 100% vigor. So if it's a prognosis of 6 to 8 weeks, I'll take the 6. I don't know exactly what the surgery was, so I'm just making numbers up. But I will say that without a shadow of a doubt, he is going to be on the lower side of returning, because he is going to give everything in his power, as Bruno has already mentioned, to his rehab, because that's the type of human being he is. So he's the guy that you love to rehab as a professional, and he's a guy that's going to be back sooner than later. We just don't know when that sooner is, because we don't really know when the surgery is.
But I guess the biggest talking point around our form, or definitely our results dipping over the latter end of December, is the whole Glasner saga and Fabrizio Romano deciding to ruin everyone's Christmas Day with his horrible tweet, which we had a conversation about before we started recording. I hope it didn't ruin anyone's Christmas Day. After a few beers, I did kind of look at it for a second and think, holy shit. No way. And then I remembered there is no way that would come out on Christmas Day as if Glasner is sat there on the phone saying, no, I want out now. Obviously that's not the case. But the media really seem to be pushing this narrative that he should go somewhere else. And, he does. Yes, I'm not denying the fact that he does deserve to go to a bigger club. And, we very much can be pushing. I genuinely do think he will be managing a Champions League club in the next few years, but I don't want that to be next year. My take on it is he's always said that he would have the discussions around the new contract after the very busy December. Now, as we all know, what comes after December, the transfer window. So realistically, what I'm thinking is Glasner's going to. I think Glasner may say to Parish, I will sign another year on these conditions, and with these conditions, if we get these players in that fit Glasner's system and everything, then maybe he does sign another year. I also question whether Parish would drop a record signing in Brennan Johnson on a player that Glasner wants if he's not going to be here after the summer. That's not very Parish, is it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you two are thinking, but just one more year, Ollie. Just one more year will do me nicely.
I think Glasner has been quite cute about it with the media. He's not gone out and said very much about the contract other than we'll talk in January and uncertainty, whatever. I doubt he will have gone out and said something like, I will stay if you spend 80 million, but it's like, I cannot manage a team if I don't have the players. And that's the kind of thing that's been hinted at throughout the season. Glasner's done a couple of interviews where he's spoken about it. I can't remember which game it was after, but he very passionately spoke about the lack of business done in the summer. And I think it made it very, very clear that he was only going to stay if he was supported. And I mean severely supported in January. And speed is part of that as well. We weren't quick enough in January. We weren't quick enough in the summer. Brennan Johnson is being dealt with very quickly, and we're throwing the bag at a player that is perfect for Glasner's system. And I think it's a gamble from Parish probably, unless like Glasner has genuinely said, if you sign all these players, I will stay, which I doubt would have happened. So it's a gamble, but I think the outcome of it either way is a stronger squad and more continuity. Like if Glasner stays, great, there's your continuity. If he leaves, then you sign players you would have had to have signed in the summer anyway, earlier on. We're going to have some turnover, whether it's Glasner, whether it's Wharton, whether it's Mateta, whether it's Munoz. Those players, and Gay's obviously leaving on a free end of season. So you're losing probably maybe an expected of 2.5 players and 50-50 on your manager, if I want to be really bullshitty about the maths on it. But having players in earlier so you don't completely disrupt the squad like we've done in the past to the detriment of our early season performances, look at 2023-24, look at 24-25, then that puts us in a much more promising position going into the summer.
I think that's a great point, because I do think he's looking for us to be more proactive and not, like you said, you're going to be losing probably two of your best players, your captain and Adam Morton, who is going to go for a lot of money and is a huge part of this squad. Mateta might go, Lerma might go, Kamada might go. I mean, you have all these guys that might leave, and I think they're just looking maybe for us to not get caught out on our toes and not get caught back on the back foot and actually be proactive and make these signings early. The one thing I will say is that, as kind of we alluded to, the system not really mattering how you start in the shape, I think we need to get out of our head of like, oh, we can't go sign this person because he can't play in a back three, or we can't go sign this person because he can't play. He's a back four player. He's a out and out winger. He's this. Daniel Munoz never played as a wing back in a back five before he came to Palace. Tyrick Mitchell never played in a back five. Maybe I think he played in a back three at left center back for England a few times, but he's never played as wing back before. They can both slide into a back four and play. Sarr can go play winger, and Nketiah can go play second striker. He can play here, he can play there. So I think that the idea that we are being handcuffed by Glasner, not knowing what he's doing, I'm not sure if that's the right notion, because I just think, hey, go sign players that can play. We'll figure out a way. Go sign good players.
That brings us nicely into the awards for the year. I think we should start off with, I'd like to start with the big one. In player of the year, for me, this wasn't really very close. There was a couple of names that I would like to throw around. I think Wharton deserves a mention. I think JP deserves a mention. I mean, you could, if he was still wearing red and blue, I think we would undoubtedly say Eze, but we'll leave that one there. I'm gonna say Daniel Munoz is my player of the year. Don't really need to say too much on it, but I think he's detrimental to the way that we play, to the way that we score goals, his work rate. I've said so many times before that there is not many players in world football that I think are that are right back, if you will, that are good in all 3/3 of the pitch, and they've got that amount of quality. So I don't know about you two, but that's my player of the year.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I'd agree that he's instrumental, maybe not detrimental to how we play. Munoz, if we can't give it to Eze as he's no longer playing in red and blue, then Munoz is the player who assisted him and had a goal disallowed and kept Doku relatively quiet, as terrifying as it was for 100 odd minutes. Then yeah, it absolutely should be Daniel Munoz. We've seen how we struggle without him. He's been absolutely fantastic. Like you say, scored the most goals of any Premier League defender. He scored our first ever goal in a European competition. I mean, what a year it's been for us. What a year it's been for Daniel Munoz. And he's probably the best player I think we've ever signed in terms of value for money. So yeah, just 10 out of 10 player, 10 out of 10 year for him, 10 out of 10 year for Palace.
Yeah, just by the very definition of it, value. What is his value? We're seeing it right now because he's out and we're out of sorts. So by far, everything he's done, we don't need to say more about it. Daniel Munoz.
Well, I think if we're talking about young players, I think it's only right to ask Bruno to introduce this one. So, young player of the year, Bruno. What do you reckon?
I'm going to give a really out there shout. I'm not going to give it to one of our like academy players because I'm going to chuck that into the one to watch period. Maybe. I think Justin Devaney is our young player of the year. He scored the winning penalty. He scored a penalty against Millwall. He's continued to score goals. He's broken into the team and stayed. Glasner said he'll double his minutes this season from last season. He came on against Arsenal and we looked a much better side as a coherent system with him. I love him so much. He came from absolutely nowhere. I mean, what a masterpiece of recruitment from this club to find him and develop him and then bring him in. And I don't think anyone really saw it coming. He's now one of the best players in the Northern Irish team. He's on set pieces for them. It's been so wonderful to see such a lovely guy come out and make it at our club because it doesn't happen very often. And, you know, he's a very technical player. He's fantastic on set pieces. He's a great passer. He's got so much more room to grow, but he's got the work ethic to get there. Glasner loves him. It's just been a fantastic year for Devaney. And, you know, I said going into the Community Shield that a Justin Devaney winner would like send me to the moon. He so nearly scored in like the 94th minute on his right. And I still got to see him hammer home one of the best penalties I've ever seen.
You weren't wrong, were you, really?
It's just so good. So yeah, Justin Devaney.
I would also say Devaney as well, but I don't really think there's not that many. If we're talking about kind of first team players here, I don't think there's really that many. Because when we did the end of the season awards, Pat, and we were saying how do we talk about young player of the season? Is it a player who is, you know, are we doing it properly and who's playing his first two couple of seasons in first team football? So I would say Devaney. And I'd like to say, before I let you speak, Pat, I remember my first pod with you, Bruno, around a year ago, and it was just when Devaney was starting to come into the first team. And I'm sure you remember saying it when we were on with Ollie Thomas. You were like, I don't think Devaney has got a long-term future at Crystal Palace. Do you still think that?
Get receipts.
Okay, the reason I say that I said it at a time, even though I don't really remember saying it, is because he hadn't massively stood out at that level.
No, you're not wrong.
I've learned like so much about football, I mean, in this last year. And I think the most interesting thing that I've learned has probably been that players who can translate playing at their own pace across leagues are the ones that can make the step up convincingly. And Justin Devaney's done that transition very well. If you watch someone like Benamar, you can see he's a lot more rushed into his actions at senior level in that one game he played versus what he's like at youth level. With Devaney, he's kind of got the same time on the ball at both levels, and that's the marker for me now of like looking at how a player translates. I think we were looking at selling Devaney and making some quick money on him at times, and he's fluttered between being someone we can rely on and someone that maybe isn't good enough. But I think in this last month, he's really cemented himself as a member of the squad and someone with something to add. And maybe he'll move on because, you know, he's not good enough to start and he can get more game time elsewhere. And that would be one of the reasons I'd still say he may not have a long-term future at the club. But he's had a massive impact in the time he's been here.
Nicely saved.
Yeah, that was a slightly painful one, but I'll roll with it.
Go on, Pat. Who's your young player?
Devaney's a great choice, but there's someone that's 4 months younger than him that we forget is 4 months younger than him.
Adam Morton?
Because he's sensational, and that's Adam Morton, absolutely. I think we forget how young he is. He's just our maestro. When he's out, we there's a big difference. We don't progress the ball as well as we do. I mean, we've been talking about this man for so long. I don't think we need to go on and on about Adam Morton, but he's just unbelievable. And the fact that he's still only 21 years old, I think, maybe 22 now, shows just the quality that he's at and the age level that he's at. He's going to continue to grow. He's going to continue to get better. And hopefully we can keep him for as long as we can. But when he does decide to leave Crystal Palace, he's going to go on to just massive Olise style things, I think.
No, I agree. For me, I and it is right. I do forget how young Wharton is, and I do believe he's actually younger than me. But which is a little bit painful. But because obviously he's played, he must have played what 4 seasons of first team football. I don't know how long he was playing first team at Blackburn for, but he is just one of those players that has made that step up into first team football, not only just in the Championship, but to do in the Premier League as well.
Yeah, this is his 5th season of senior football, first team.
5th,
so
yeah.
21 years old. So it's pretty impressive.
Crazy. If we swiftly move on, I'll bring you this one back onto you, Pat, because I could talk about this player for a while. Most improved / most surprising player of the year.
Ooh, that's a good choice. Let's see. I got a couple in mind. I mean, if I'm gonna go with the surprising instead of the improved, and I'm gonna go with Ismail Assar. For me personally, I saw him as more of an Ayew replacement, and I like Jordan Ayew, but I saw him as a player that was going to come off the bench, maybe have some spot starts, play in some key moments, have some good goals for us. But he ended up being one of the leaders in goals and assists, leaders in expected goals and expected assists combined across Europe's top 5 leagues last year. I didn't see that coming, and I think if anyone told you they did see it coming, I think they're lying to you. So in terms of surprising, really exceeding the expectations that I had for him, and I think most of us did, I think Ismail Assar. And I know he's in a little bit of a rut right now, but I think his form from the last 18 months or so, it's going to come back to where we know him at last season.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wasn't going to say Sarr. I'll say my other two, which are going to be, I think Tyreek Mitchell in 2025 has come along so well, and for most improved, I'd say he's probably number 2. Number 1, Daichi. He's not surprising because I think we all had really high expectations for him coming in. He's maybe surprising in that his role that he's fulfilled is a different one in the squad than many of us and Glasner expected. But he has, in 2025, gone from probably the most hated on player in our squad to being one of the most crucial. And his partnership with Wharton is one of the most creative and exciting midfields we've ever had as a football club.
No, I do agree. Mine was Daichi, just because of the that he had a really tough kind of first 6 months, didn't he? And he was getting all sorts of comments and borderline abuse, I think, from some fans, because he, like you say, he came in with that expectation. He played with Glasner before, and it was, we thought on a free, although his, what's he on, about 100 and something K a week. I know he's, further up on the wages, but yeah, he always had that class in him. And I think it's nice to see that finally he is getting rewarded for his quality that he undoubtedly did have. It was just a time and the position where he was going to shine. I would say Daichi, but it's a close one. But I'm gonna save this other name that I'm thinking of for the next award, which is actually Unsung Hero. Now, my unsung hero is Chris Richards, because I feel like Gay and Lacroix get a lot of the headlines for our defensive quality. Maybe not so much on set pieces over the past month, but we'll move it on. He fits in that back three, and I don't think that back three is the same without him. I remember me and Pat had a discussion when Chalobah got recalled last year, and Pat, you were saying, I think Richards is going to come in, and I think it was nothing to do with the fact he was American at all. But he and I was saying I just don't think he's good enough. I don't think he's good enough to start every game for us in the Premier League. And I did say by the end of last season that I was wrong, and I think I'm even more wrong now. I think he's quality, and we do miss him when he cut his foot against, I can't remember who it was. It Fulham? No,
it was it. No, it was Arsenal.
Arsenal, that was it.
That was a cup match, yeah.
Yeah, and I do think that we have missed him a little bit since then. He was a little bit rocky against Leeds, but yeah, I just think he completes that front three, and I think it's a little bit harsh on him that Gate and Lacroix steal all the headlines. I would like to include him in the 3.
I really struggle with this category because my first instinct was just to say Gahey, because no matter how much we praise him, I think he's just amazing. And this season in particular, he has been absolutely outstanding. I've never seen a centre-back play like this in my life. He is amazing. But he's not who I'm going to say. I'm going to give a slightly insane one and say Jean-Philippe Mateta. I think what he brings to our starting 11 is completely irreplaceable. And even when he's not scoring goals, even when his hold-up isn't great, his presence, his strength, his intuition is just second to none. You do not have another striker like him in the Premier League. Like, his pass to Sarr against RZ Alkmaar, I don't think any striker since Kane can do that in the Premier League other than Mateta. The way he skips past players with that agility, despite being 6'5" and built like a brick shithouse, is remarkable. He absolutely tormented Strasbourg's young centre-back to the point that he got substituted off in the first half. And this is even in, maybe his worst spell since Glasner came in. He really is an unsung hero for me because he carries our team and he shows up and he plays, even through a knee injury, even through bad form, even with, a attack around him falling apart due to injuries and adjustment. And, I think he'll come back and have a very strong second half of the season and remind everyone why, he is the starting striker.
Max, I obviously love Chris Richards, and that's a fantastic thing. He's one of the few things that one of the few American things I'm proud of at the moment right now, if I can say that. I'm going to go with someone that is not unsung for me. He is very much sung and has been for seasons now, but I think unsung is probably what the fan base is seeing. I'm going to go with Tyrick Mitchell. Since the 2023, 2024 season, so 2.5 seasons, Tyrick Mitchell has missed 2 Premier League matches. 2. He is extremely durable. He is extremely hardworking. He is not flashy. He's going to go out there and play his game. If he makes a mistake, he's going to get back up and do it again. If he does something great, has a goal or an assist, he's not going to get a big head. He's going to continue to be the same person. He shows up day in and day out as the exact same human being, the exact same person. And I think having that reliability on the left side has been just a huge luxury for Crystal Palace. And we're seeing the fruition of that labor because he's starting to really show what he can do in the attacking third and becoming a little bit more well-rounded of a player and not just a defender. And yeah, I just think another young player relatively that continue to grow, and his durability notwithstanding, I think it's just incredible what he's done. So Tyrick Mitchell for me. I think he doesn't get the credit he deserves.
I agree. And I think we are finally getting to a point now where people are starting to recognize how influential he is. And also, just on a side note, I know we're trying to wrap it up, but on a side note, for me, he's on the plane in the England squad to the World Cup. I don't see how he's not. He will be so unlucky to miss out. He should definitely. I know Tuchel likes to keep the squad, but over these next, what we got, is it 2 or 3 more camps between now and the World Cup? He has to be included. You've got to integrate him into the squad, because for saying that there's no obvious left back there, in my opinion, you have to take Tyrick Mitchell. You have to. But moving on to ones to watch for 2026. I feel like this was quite a tough one. I'm torn between a few names, so I'm going to let you two speak your pieces, and then I'm gonna go after.
I think Pino's cheating, so I'm going to give him an honorable mention. But I think for what we signed him for, we all should be watching him. I'm going to go with. I'm between 2 players. I'm going to be a little more first team oriented, and I'm going to say Uche with the hope that we re-sign him. But just even if we don't, these next few months for him, he's shown some huge signs of the player he can be, and he really is the mold of what Glasner likes in an attacker. He's physical, he's direct, he's got power, he's got some pace to him. I think that if he continues to gain Glasner's trust, which he seems like he is on the verge of doing, he's going to start to get some more minutes, and I think that he can have some big numbers for us. So I think Kristancic is going to be the one to watch.
Max texted in our cool chat, £1,000 Bruno says Joel Drakes-Thomas. I was going to say either Jeremy Pino or Joel Drakes-Thomas, so you've both slagged me off in the last minute. But I made a Twitter edit of him yesterday, and it made me kind of appreciate what he's been bringing to the team. There's a lot more to come from him, but the talent is there, the ability is there, and the work ethic is there. I question the attitude sometimes. I think he gives up too easily. He doesn't get up off the floor. He complains too much. But, he'll learn that with Glasner, because Glasner's not shy about calling players out for that. He dropped Uche for a week because he went down too easily and complained too much. So, that's something that will come. As for Drakes-Thomas, we saw that he brings something to our team we haven't seen since Zaha. And that's insanely exciting to be saying about a 16-year-old who has hardly played at 21's level, let alone first team level. Now, I doubt he'll play much for the rest of the season. I'm personally hoping we get to see him against Macclesfield. But Glasner said in the press conference, it's best that he finds his rhythm with the 21s and doesn't train up too much with the first, because obviously they're not training. But I think next season, potentially Joel Drakes-Thomas could be someone we see in the matchday squad a lot more often, and he's the most exciting player we've had in our academy since Wilf.
I agree, and I really hope he skips that phase of getting loaned out. And I do see him. I comment, it might have been you, Pat, that said it in our chat the other day about he is that kind of Ethan Ranieri type player that skips the loan phase, and he should be integrated into the first team squad as soon as possible. Is he going to keep his place on the bench when Brennan Johnson comes in? I really do hope so. And even if he comes on for kind of 10 minutes and he's given an opportunity to showcase without the pressure, like, if we're winning by 2 or 3 goals, we can when you've kind of got that opportunity.
I think hopefully Brennan Johnson proves us all right and comes in and saves our season, and whoever we end up signing, hopefully more than one, also fill out the squad and give us a chance at maybe winning another trophy in 2026. But otherwise, I think that's pretty much all we had time for. I hope you enjoyed the return of the Palace Way podcast. We will be doing a lot more for the rest of the season now that we've gotten back in the rhythm. We'll have Bobby Manzi with us throughout January. We'll do some spaces. We'll do some articles. I'm currently repping the merch, which our YouTube subscribers will be able to see. We'll have new lines coming out as well, so feel free to check out that, thepalaceway.com/shop. Be sure to follow Max. Be sure to follow Pat. Their links will be in the description. But otherwise, have a fantastic new year. Hope you're not too hungover when you're listening to this. And let's hope Palace can get all 3 points against Fulham. Have a fantastic new year. And we'll see you next time.